Tonight, dear friend, allow your mind to slow. Allow the concerns of the day to drift away like footprints washed from the sand by a gentle tide. There is nothing to accomplish, nothing to solve, nothing to carry. Only a story, an ancient story. A story whispered for centuries beside fires, beneath stars, and along distant shores where land meets the endless sea. Tonight we travel to the southern coast of ancient India, to a place where golden sand stretched farther than the eye could see, where coconut palms swayed in the ocean breeze, where waves rolled endlessly from the horizon, arriving one after another, day after day, century after century. The sea never seemed to rest. Yet neither did it seem hurried. Its rhythm was ancient, patient, timeless. At dawn, the ocean reflected soft shades of gold and rose. At midday, it shone like liquid sapphire. At sunset, the waves carried the colors of fire. And at night, beneath countless stars, the water became a dark mirror stretching toward infinity. Many creatures lived along this coast. Crabs wandered across the sand. Sea turtles emerged from the waves. Tiny fish darted through shallow waters. Seabirds glided effortlessly upon the wind. Among these birds lived a devoted pair of white plovers. Small birds. Ordinary birds. The sort of birds most travelers would never notice. Yet, as is often the case in great stories, appearances can be deceiving. For even the smallest creature may carry lessons capable of changing hearts. The male bird was named Yudhanapada. The female bird was named Pativrata. Together they had spent many seasons beside the sea. They knew the shoreline well. They knew where the tides reached. They knew where food could be found. They knew the songs of the wind and the moods of the ocean. And now a joyful season had arrived. Soon, Pativrata would lay eggs. Soon, a new generation would enter the world. The thought filled her heart with warmth. Often she would sit quietly upon the beach at sunset, watching the waves, imagining the future. She imagined tiny chicks running across the sand. She imagined teaching them how to search for food, how to avoid danger, how to ride the ocean breeze. Every mother dreams of protecting her children. And Pativrata was no different. One evening, as the sun slowly descended toward the horizon, she stood beside the nest she and Yudhanapada had built. The nest rested upon a beautiful stretch of beach. Golden sand surrounded it. The ocean sparkled nearby. The location seemed peaceful, perfect, even. Yet Pativrata's heart felt uneasy. She watched a distant wave rise and fall. Then another. Then another. The tide was gradually climbing higher. Not much. Only a little. but enough. The sea was closer than it had been earlier that day. A small feeling of concern stirred within her. She looked at the nest, then at the ocean, then back at the nest again. The wind carried the scent of salt water. The waves continued their endless approach. Patience. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. The rhythm seemed beautiful. Yet beauty sometimes conceals danger. As twilight settled across the coast, Pativrata turned toward her husband. Uttanapata stood proudly atop a piece of driftwood overlooking the shore. The fading sunlight illuminated his white feathers. He appeared confident, relaxed, completely unconcerned. Pativrata approached him gently. "My dear." Her voice was soft. The ocean breeze carried her words. Uttanapata turned toward her. "Yes?" She glanced toward the nest, then toward the sea. A wave crashed softly in the distance. "I think we should move." The male bird blinked. "Move?" She nodded. Another nesting place. The sky continued darkening above them. "The ocean is very close." Uttanapata looked toward the water, then back toward the nest. He saw no problem. The sea appeared calm. The beach appeared safe. The evening appeared peaceful. "Why leave?" Pativrata continued. "Soon I will lay our eggs." A gentle seriousness entered her voice. "I fear the tide may rise." The male bird remained silent. She lowered her gaze. "I would rather be cautious now than regretful later." For a moment, neither spoke. The ocean continued breathing in the darkness. The first stars appeared overhead. Far beyond the horizon, unseen currents moved through the depths. The world felt calm. Yet a decision was approaching. One that neither bird yet understood. One that would soon bring them into conflict with a force far larger than themselves. The sea. Ancient. Vast. Endless. Patiently listening from the shadows. As night settled over the shoreline, the waves rolled steadily toward the beach. And somewhere within the darkness, destiny quietly began to stir. The night passed gently along the coast. Moonlight shimmered upon the surface of the sea. Silver waves rolled toward the shore and dissolved softly into the sand. The wind carried the scent of salt and distant rain. Above, countless stars hung like lanterns across the vast heavens. Most creatures slept peacefully. The crabs hid beneath the sand. The fish drifted through dark waters. Even the palms seemed to rest beneath the moonlight. But Pativrata could not sleep. She remained awake beside the nest, watching, listening, thinking. Every few moments her eyes drifted toward the sea. The waves continued their endless rhythm. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. The sound was soothing. Yet beneath that soothing sound, she sensed something else. Power. Immense power. The kind of power that often goes unnoticed when it remains calm. She thought of the eggs she would soon lay. Tiny. Fragile. Defenseless. A mother's heart naturally worries about such things. Not because it enjoys fear. Because it understands responsibility. Eventually, the eastern horizon began to brighten. Night slowly surrendered to dawn. The stars faded. The sea turned from black to silver, then from silver to gold. A new day had begun. Udanapada awoke feeling refreshed. He stretched his wings and greeted the morning breeze. The world appeared beautiful. The sky was clear. The sea was calm. The sunlight warm. What reason was there to worry? He hopped cheerfully toward the nest. Pativrata was already awake, watching the tide. Again. The male bird smiled. "My dear, you've been watching the ocean all night." Pativrata returned the smile. But concern remained in her eyes. Because the ocean does not sleep. Udanapada laughed softly. The answer amused him. The ocean has always been there. Exactly. The female bird nodded. It has always been there. Her gaze remained fixed upon the water. And it will remain long after we are gone. For a moment, Udanapada did not respond. Pativrata continued gently. "I have been thinking." The waves rolled ashore behind them. "I truly believe we should move our nest." The male bird sighed. Again this conversation. Again this concern. Again this fear. To him, it seemed unnecessary. The beach had served them well. The location was beautiful. The ocean had never harmed them before. Why assume it would now? Udanapada spread his wings proudly. "My dear." His voice carried confidence. "Perhaps you worry too much." The words were not cruel. But they revealed something important. The difference between caution and confidence. One sees danger everywhere. The other sees danger nowhere. Wisdom usually lives somewhere between them. Pativrata looked at him carefully. "I hope I am worrying too much." Her voice remained calm. "But what if I am not?" The male bird remained silent. She continued, "Our eggs cannot fly." The ocean breeze stirred her feathers. "Our chicks cannot escape." A distant wave crashed against the shore. "If something happens, it will be too late." For a few moments, neither spoke. The sea continued its eternal conversation with the land. Finally, Uttanapata shook his head. "No." The answer came quickly. Too quickly. "I will not move." The female bird lowered her gaze. She had expected this. Her husband possessed many good qualities. He was brave, loyal, determined. Yet he also carried another trait: pride. Not the healthy pride that inspires effort. The dangerous kind. The kind that refuses advice. The kind that mistakes confidence for wisdom. Pativrata understood this. That was why she spoke carefully. "My dear." The morning sunlight illuminated the shoreline. "Do you know why many creatures suffer?" Uttanapata blinked. The question surprised him. She continued, "Not because they are weak. Not because they are unlucky." The waves rolled gently beside them. They suffer because they refuse to listen. The male bird frowned slightly. Now he sensed the conversation changing direction. Pativrata settled beside him. "There was once a turtle." The words immediately caught his attention. Like most creatures, he enjoyed stories. Especially old stories. Stories often carried wisdom hidden beneath simple events. The female bird gazed toward the horizon, remembering, or perhaps simply preparing to teach. This turtle lived beside a beautiful lake. Her voice became calm and rhythmic. The sort of voice one uses when telling an ancient tale. The lake provided everything he needed. Food, water, shelter. For many years he lived happily. The morning breeze drifted across the beach. Uttanapata listened quietly. Even the ocean seemed to listen. Then Pativrata continued. One year, however, the rains did not come. The mood of the story shifted. The water began disappearing. The lake grew smaller, and smaller, and smaller. The male bird nodded. He could already sense danger approaching. The turtle had two close friends. The female bird smiled softly. Two wise geese. When they saw the shrinking lake, they became worried. The waves rolled steadily behind them. They told the turtle he must leave. The story felt familiar. Ancient. Timeless. At first, the turtle refused. Pativrata glanced toward her husband. Only briefly. Then continued. He loved the lake. He believed everything would be fine. He ignored their warnings. The male bird remained silent. The comparison was becoming increasingly obvious. The geese continued urging him. The sea breeze strengthened slightly. Finally, the turtle agreed. Uttanapata nodded. That seems sensible. Pativrata smiled. Yes. But wisdom is not merely agreeing. The male bird tilted his head. The female bird continued. The geese devised a plan. They carried a stick. One goose held each end. The turtle gripped the middle with his mouth. Together they would fly to a safer lake. The image seemed almost amusing. The male bird chuckled. Pativrata smiled as well. Then her expression became serious. The geese gave the turtle one instruction. The waves crashed gently against the shore. One instruction only. Uttanapata listened carefully. Do not speak. The female bird paused. No matter what happens. No matter what anyone says. Do not open your mouth. Silence followed. The lesson seemed obvious. Yet many tragedies begin with obvious warnings. Warnings nobody believes apply to them. Pativrata looked toward the ocean. Then toward her husband. The turtle promised. Her voice softened. He promised he would listen. The sun climbed higher above the horizon. The sea glittered brilliantly. And somewhere beyond the waves, destiny continued drawing closer. For neither bird yet realized how much the turtle's story resembled their own. Or how soon another lesson about pride would arrive. This time not from a lake, but from the sea itself. The morning sun continued rising above the ocean. Golden light spread across the shoreline. The waves sparkled like countless scattered jewels. Seabirds drifted gracefully through the sky. The world seemed peaceful. Yet beneath that peaceful surface, an important lesson was still unfolding. Pativrata remained beside her husband. The story of the turtle had not yet ended. The sea breeze moved gently through their feathers. The sound of the waves accompanied her words like a quiet drumbeat. Uttanapata listened patiently. Though deep inside, he already suspected where the story was heading. Still, ancient stories have a curious power. Even when we know the ending, we often need to hear it again. The female bird continued. The geese lifted the turtle into the sky. The image formed clearly. A turtle hanging from a stick. 2 geese carrying him across the heavens. Far below, forests and rivers passed beneath them. Villages appeared like tiny clusters of dots. Fields stretched across the landscape. The turtle had never seen the world from such a height. At first, he was amazed. Everything seemed beautiful. Everything seemed wonderful. And most importantly, everything seemed to be going perfectly. Pativrata paused. Then she added softly, "That is often when trouble begins." The male bird glanced at her. The lesson was becoming increasingly clear. The female continued. As they flew over a village, people noticed them. Children pointed upward. Farmers stopped their work. Merchants left their stalls. Everyone stared in astonishment. "Look," they shouted. "A flying turtle! I've never seen such a thing." The ocean rolled steadily behind them. The sunlight danced upon the water. Pativrata lowered her voice slightly. The turtle heard them. Uttanapata nodded. He could already guess what happened next. The villagers continued shouting. "How ridiculous! What a strange creature! Look at him hanging there." The female bird sighed. The sound carried both humor and sadness. The turtle became angry. The male bird smiled faintly. A very familiar mistake. The geese had warned him. The waves rose and fell. They had explained everything. They had given him one simple instruction. The female bird looked directly at her husband. Remain silent. The lesson hung between them, like a bird suspended upon the wind. Yet pride rarely enjoys silence. Pride wants to answer. Pride wants to defend itself. Pride wants the last word. Pativrata continued. The turtle could not bear the insults. He forgot the warning. He forgot the danger. He forgot the wisdom of his friends. The ocean breeze strengthened slightly, as though nature itself anticipated the ending. Finally, he opened his mouth. The female bird paused. The shoreline seemed unusually quiet. Even the waves sounded distant. "You fools," he shouted. Silence. A very short silence. Then she finished, and the moment he spoke, the male bird closed his eyes. He already knew. He released the stick. The image was unavoidable. The turtle falling. Faster and faster. The sky disappearing above him. The ground rushing upward. The consequences of a single moment of pride. The turtle struck the earth. Pativrata's voice softened. And died. For several moments, neither bird spoke. The ocean continued its endless rhythm. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. The story had ended. The lesson remained. At last, Pativrata looked toward her husband. What destroyed him? The question lingered in the air. The male bird answered immediately. His pride. The female nodded. And his refusal to listen. The waves rolled onto the sand. Then slowly withdrew. Again and again. As they had done long before either bird was born. Pativrata's expression remained gentle. I do not tell this story to criticize you. The male bird listened quietly. I tell it because I love you. The sincerity in her voice was impossible to miss. I do not wish to lose our eggs. I do not wish to lose our future. The ocean breeze carried her words away across the shore. For a moment, it seemed the lesson might finally reach him. For a moment. Then Uttanapata laughed. Not cruelly. Not maliciously. Simply with complete confidence. My dear. The female bird felt her heart sink. The tone was familiar. Too familiar. The tone of someone who has heard wisdom, and immediately decided it applies to everyone except themselves. The male bird puffed out his chest. The turtle was foolish. Pativrata remained silent. He ignored good advice. She remained silent. He lacked judgment. Still she remained silent. Then the male bird smiled proudly, but I am not a turtle. The female bird closed her eyes briefly. There it was. The oldest mistake in the world. Everyone believes they can recognize another person's pride. Far fewer recognize their own. The male bird hopped onto a rock overlooking the sea. The morning sunlight illuminated his white feathers. He looked magnificent. Small. Yet magnificent. And unfortunately, he knew it. The turtle was weak. The waves crashed gently below. He lacked courage. The female bird listened. He lacked confidence. Pativrata said nothing. The male bird spread his wings dramatically. I am different. The sea glittered behind him. The horizon stretched endlessly outward. An ocean so vast that no bird could see its end. Yet Uttanapata seemed completely unimpressed. The ocean cannot frighten me. Pativrata immediately turned toward him. The words alarmed her. Not because they were brave. Because they were foolish. The male bird continued. Our nest will remain exactly where it is. A distant wave crashed upon the shore. I fear no tide. Another wave followed. I fear no storm. The sea breeze grew stronger. And I certainly do not fear the ocean. The words echoed across the beach. Simple words. careless words. Words spoken without thought. Yet sometimes a single sentence can change the course of a life, or many lives. Pativrata stared at her husband. Part of her wished to argue. Part of her wished to continue persuading him. But another part understood something important. Wisdom cannot be forced into a closed mind. A person must choose to receive it. The female bird sighed softly. The ocean stretched before them. Ancient, vast, silent. At least, outwardly silent. For deep beneath the waves, something had heard. Something had listened. Something far older than either bird. Far more powerful. The ocean itself. The sea had listened to every word. The warnings. The arguments. The boasts. And especially the final declaration. I certainly do not fear the ocean. The endless waters remained outwardly calm. The waves continued rolling toward the shore. Nothing appeared different. Yet deep within the ancient sea, a thought began to form. A thought born not from anger alone, but from curiosity. The ocean had witnessed kings rise and fall. Ships sink. Empires disappear. Mountains slowly crumble. And now, a tiny bird claimed it was unafraid. The ocean considered this carefully. Then, somewhere beneath the waves, a slow and ancient amusement began to stir. Very well, thought the ocean. Let us see how fearless you truly are. The waves continued their gentle rhythm. The sun climbed higher into the sky. The birds returned to their daily tasks. And unseen by either of them, destiny quietly moved one step closer. Soon the sea would answer. And its answer would change everything. The days passed quietly along the shore. At least, they appeared quiet. The sun continued rising above the horizon each morning. The waves continued rolling toward the beach. The seabirds continued gliding upon the wind. Nothing seemed different. Nothing seemed unusual. Yet sometimes the most important changes occur beneath the surface. Invisible. Silent. Patient. Just as unseen currents move beneath the sea, unseen consequences often move beneath our choices. Neither Uttanapata nor Pativrata realized this. Life continued. The nest remained where it was. The ocean remained nearby, and eventually, the long-awaited day arrived. Pativrata laid her eggs. Tiny treasures rested within the nest. Small, fragile, perfect. The sight filled her heart with joy. Every mother knows this feeling. The feeling of looking upon a future not yet born. A future filled with hopes, dreams, possibilities. For a long time she sat quietly beside them, watching, protecting, listening to the soft whisper of the sea. Even Uttanapata felt pride. Not the dangerous pride that boasts. The simple pride of a father. He gazed at the eggs and imagined the future. Young chicks running across the beach, learning to fly, learning to survive, learning to face the world. For several days, peace returned to their lives. The arguments faded. The warnings faded. Even Pativrata's concerns began to soften. The sea remained calm. The nest remained untouched. Perhaps, she thought, everything would be fine after all. Perhaps her fears had been unnecessary. Many creatures make this mistake. When danger delays its arrival, they assume it will never come. But delay is not the same as absence. Far beneath the waves, the ocean remembered. Ancient things rarely forget. The ocean had listened to the little bird's boasting. It had listened to his declarations. It had listened to his certainty. And though the sea possessed tremendous power, it also possessed tremendous patience. The ocean did not rush. It simply waited. Waiting has always been one of the strengths of great forces. Mountains wait. Rivers wait. Time waits. And so the ocean waited. Until the perfect moment arrived. One morning, the sky was clear. The wind was gentle. The sea appeared unusually calm. The eggs rested safely in the nest. Everything seemed peaceful. Uttanapata looked toward his mate. We should gather food. Pativrata hesitated. She glanced at the nest. Then toward the sea. A familiar uneasiness briefly stirred within her. But the ocean looked harmless. The waves were small. The tide seemed distant. At last she nodded. We will return quickly. Together they took flight. Their white wings disappeared into the morning sky. The nest remained behind. Alone. Quiet. Unprotected. For a time, nothing happened. The shoreline remained peaceful. The waves continued their gentle rhythm. The sun climbed higher. Clouds drifted lazily overhead. Then the ocean moved. Not suddenly, not violently. The sea understood patience. A wave rose, larger than the others. Then another. Then another. Far beyond the shore, powerful currents gathered. The tide began advancing. Slowly. Steadily. Like an army crossing a distant plain. The water crept higher upon the sand. Higher. And higher. The nest remained motionless. The eggs rested peacefully within. Unaware. The ocean continued advancing. Wave after wave. Each reaching slightly farther. Each carrying a little more power. At last the decisive wave arrived. A towering surge rolled toward the beach. Sunlight flashed across its surface. Foam curled along its crest. The water rushed forward. Across the sand. Past the rocks. Toward the nest. For a brief moment, the eggs remained visible. Small white shapes resting within the shorebird's home. Then the wave reached them. The nest disappeared beneath water. The eggs vanished. The ocean withdrew, pulling everything with it. The nest. The eggs. The future the birds had imagined. All swept into the vastness of the sea. Moments later, the shoreline appeared calm once again. As though nothing had happened. As though the ocean had never moved at all. Only the empty sand remained. Hours later, the two birds returned. The journey had been successful. Food had been gathered. The sky remained beautiful. The day remained bright. Uttanapata landed first. Immediately something felt wrong. The beach looked different. A strange emptiness lingered before him. His eyes widened. The nest was gone. For a moment he could not understand. His mind searched for explanations. Perhaps it had shifted. Perhaps he was mistaken. Then Pativrata landed beside him. The moment she saw the empty sand, she froze. Silence. Complete silence. The world seemed to stop. The waves continued rolling ashore. The wind continued blowing. The sunlight continued shining. Yet for the two birds, everything had changed. Slowly, Pativrata stepped forward. Looking. Searching. Hoping. The nest was nowhere. The eggs were nowhere. Only smooth wet sand remained. The truth became impossible to deny. The ocean had taken them. A terrible sadness entered her eyes. Not loud sadness. Not dramatic sadness. The quiet kind. The kind that arrives when hope suddenly disappears. Tears began forming. She stared at the sea, at the endless horizon, at the vast waters stretching beyond sight. Then she lowered her head. For several moments, neither bird spoke. The silence carried more pain than words could express. Finally, Pativrata whispered softly, "I warned you. The words were not spoken with anger. That somehow made them more painful. I warned you. Uttanapata felt something twist inside his heart. Shame, regret, guilt. The emotions arrived all at once. Every warning returned to him. Every conversation. Every opportunity to listen. Every chance to move the nest. Gone. Just as the eggs were gone, Pativrata closed her eyes. A tear fell onto the sand. I told you the sea was dangerous. The ocean continued breathing before them. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. Indifferent. Immense. Ancient. The little bird seemed impossibly small beside it. At last Uttanapata lifted his gaze. The grief within him began changing, transforming. Grief became anger. Anger became determination. And determination began taking a dangerous shape. He stared across the endless waters. The sea stretched beyond the horizon. Boundless. Powerful. Unreachable. Yet the male bird no longer saw its size. He saw only his loss. His voice trembled. Not with fear. With rage. The ocean has stolen our children. The waves crashed softly upon the shore. His eyes narrowed. His wings tightened. The pain in his heart demanded action. Any action. No matter how impossible. No matter how foolish. And there, upon the empty beach where his nest had once stood, the tiny bird made a decision that would soon astonish the world. A decision so absurd that even the wind seemed to pause. A decision that would place one small bird against the entire ocean. The battle was about to begin. The afternoon sun hung above the shoreline. Its golden light stretched across the water. The waves shimmered peacefully. The sea appeared calm, beautiful, almost innocent. Yet to Uttanapata, the ocean no longer looked beautiful. It looked cruel. It looked arrogant. It looked like a thief. The empty place where the nest had once rested remained before him. A silent reminder. A wound that refused to close. Beside him, Pativrata stood quietly. Her grief remained deep. But unlike her husband, her sorrow had not transformed into anger. It had transformed into understanding. Pain often teaches lessons. Sometimes gentle lessons. sometimes painful ones. The female bird had learned hers. The male bird was only beginning. For a long time, neither spoke. The waves continued their endless rhythm. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. The sound seemed almost mocking. At least to Udanapada. Finally, he stepped forward. His eyes fixed upon the horizon. The vast sea stretched endlessly before him. A force so enormous that mountains of water moved within its depths. A force older than civilizations. Older than kingdoms. Older than memory itself. Yet the tiny bird raised his head defiantly. The ocean has gone too far. His voice trembled. The female bird listened silently. Udanapada spread his wings. The ocean believes it can do whatever it wishes. A wave crashed against the shore. Foam scattered across the sand. The male bird took another step forward. It believes we are weak. The sea answered only with silence. It believes we are powerless. Another wave rolled ashore. The ocean remained unconcerned, unimpressed, unmoved. And somehow that made Udanapada even angrier. At last he shouted toward the horizon, "Then I will teach it a lesson." The wind carried his words across the water. The ocean did not reply. The silence felt unbearable. The male bird turned toward his mate. His eyes burned with determination. "I will empty the sea." Pativrata blinked. For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. "The sea?" Udanapada nodded. "The entire sea." The female bird stared at him. The statement was so extraordinary that she almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. The male bird continued, "I will remove every drop." The waves rolled steadily behind him. "I will take its water away." The female bird finally spoke. "My dear." Her voice remained gentle. "You are one bird." Udanapada ignored the observation. She continued, "The sea stretches beyond the horizon." Still he said nothing. "You cannot even see its end." The wind moved softly across the beach. "The amount of water in your beak is smaller than a raindrop." Silence. Then the male bird answered, "I do not care." The female bird sighed. The response did not surprise her. Anger rarely listens to mathematics. Grief rarely listens to reason. The male bird marched toward the shoreline. He dipped his beak into the water. Then flew a short distance inland. There he released a single drop. One tiny drop. Then he returned. Again he dipped his beak. Again he carried away a tiny amount of seawater. Again he released it. The process repeated. Over. And over. And over. The female bird watched in disbelief. The scene would have appeared absurd to anyone else. A tiny bird attempting to empty an ocean. One drop at a time. Yet Uttanapata was completely serious. The afternoon passed. The sun moved lower. Still he continued. Dip. Fly. Drop. Return. Dip. Fly. Drop. Return. The ocean remained exactly the same. Not a single visible change appeared. The sea stretched endlessly before him. Vast as ever. Powerful as ever. Yet the little bird refused to stop. By sunset he was exhausted. His wings ached. His throat was dry. His body trembled with fatigue. Still he continued. Pativrata finally approached him. My dear. Uttanapata ignored her. Another trip. Another drop. Another impossible effort. The female bird waited patiently. Eventually he paused long enough for her to speak. What you are doing cannot succeed. The words hung gently between them. The male bird lowered his head. His breathing remained heavy. His eyes remained fixed upon the sea. I know. The answer surprised her. For the first time that day, honesty appeared. The female bird looked carefully at him. You know? Uttanapata nodded slowly. The sun dipped below the horizon. Orange light reflected across the water. The beach glowed softly beneath the evening sky. I know I cannot empty the sea alone. The confession seemed to drain something from him. A burden. An illusion. A stubborn piece of pride. For a moment, silence settled between them. Then Pativrata smiled gently. Because this was the first truly wise thing he had said all day. The male bird continued staring at the horizon. I only know that doing nothing feels worse. The female bird understood. Perfectly. Sometimes grief demands movement. Sometimes the heart needs action before it can accept reality. The waves continued rolling ashore. The first stars appeared overhead. Night approached. At length, Pativrata stepped beside him. The ocean stretched before them both. Immense. Unchanging. Ancient. She studied the endless waters for a long time. Then she spoke. Softly, thoughtfully. My dear. Uttanapata listened. If a single bird cannot empty the sea, the wind moved through their feathers. Perhaps many birds can. The male bird turned toward her. She continued. If one voice cannot challenge the ocean, the stars multiplied above them. Perhaps thousands of voices can. Something shifted inside him. The idea seemed simple, obvious even. Yet somehow he had not considered it. Because anger often narrows vision. Wisdom expands it. Pativrata gazed toward the heavens. There are birds everywhere. The shoreline darkened beneath the approaching night. Birds in forests. Birds in mountains. Birds in deserts. Birds beside rivers. The sea continued its eternal rhythm. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. For the first time, the rhythm no longer sounded invincible. The female bird lowered her voice. If the ocean has wronged one bird today, her eyes reflected the starlight. It may wrong others tomorrow. The male bird remained silent, listening, learning. Finally, the female bird smiled. A battle against the sea should not be fought alone. The word settled deeply within his heart. For the first time since the eggs had vanished, hope appeared. Small, fragile, yet real. Not the hope of victory through strength. The hope of victory through unity. The stars shone brightly above the shoreline. The ocean rolled endlessly below them. Ancient, vast, confident, unaware that somewhere in the darkness, a new force was beginning to awaken. Not one bird, not two birds, but many. And when many small voices unite behind a just cause, even the largest powers in the world may be forced to listen. The little birds gazed across the sea, and together they began planning what would come next. The ocean had started this conflict. But the ocean had made one mistake. It had underestimated the power of unity. The night passed beneath a sky filled with stars. The ocean continued its endless breathing. Wave after wave rolled toward the shore. Wave after wave returned to the depths. Nothing appeared different. Nothing appeared threatened. The sea remained vast, confident, ancient. If the ocean had thoughts, it might have believed the matter finished. The eggs had been taken. The lesson had been delivered. The little birds would eventually accept their loss. After all, what could two tiny shorebirds possibly do? But the ocean had forgotten an important truth. Small creatures rarely become powerful by growing larger. They become powerful by standing together. When dawn arrived, the horizon glowed with soft gold light. The first birds began singing. The first breezes drifted across the sea. And on the shoreline, Yudanapada and Pativrata prepared for a very different kind of journey. Not a journey to gather food. Not a journey to build a nest. A journey to gather allies. The two birds took flight. Their wings carried them beyond the familiar beaches. Beyond the dunes. Beyond the palms. Across marshes and rivers. Across forests and open fields. Everywhere they went, they shared the same story. The stolen eggs. The pride of the ocean. The injustice. The grief. The need for unity. At first, many birds listened in silence. Some were sympathetic. Some were skeptical. Others simply shook their heads. One old heron standing beside a river said, "You wish to challenge the sea." His voice carried gentle amusement. The sea existed before our grandparents were born. The sea will exist after we are gone. Several nearby birds nodded. The argument seemed reasonable. The ocean was simply too large, too ancient, too powerful. Yudanapada felt discouraged. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps the task truly was impossible. But before he could respond, Pativrata stepped forward. Her voice remained calm. "Perhaps we cannot defeat the sea." The gathered birds listened. "Perhaps we cannot empty it." The river flowed quietly nearby. "But if we accept injustice simply because it is powerful." She paused. "Then power becomes the only law." The old heron became thoughtful. The other birds grew quiet. Because deep down, they understood. This was no longer merely about eggs. It was about something larger, something more important. The right of the strong to do whatever they wished. The right of the weak to exist without fear. The birds exchanged glances. A young kingfisher spoke first. "I will help." The word surprised everyone. The kingfisher was small. Not much larger than Yudanapada himself. Yet courage often appears in unexpected places. Soon another bird stepped forward. Then another. Then another. A crane joined. A sandpiper joined. A group of swallows joined. By evening, dozens of birds had pledged their support. The beginning was small. But every great movement begins small. Every forest begins with a seed. Every river begins with a spring. Every alliance begins with a single act of trust. Encouraged, the two shorebirds continued traveling. Day after day they flew from place to place. Their story spread across the land. Through forests. Through wetlands. Through mountain valleys. Birds repeated it to one another. A tiny shorebird. A stolen nest. An impossible challenge. A call for unity. Something about the story resonated deeply. Not because everyone cared about the eggs. Because everyone understood vulnerability. Every bird had faced danger. Every bird had experienced loss. Every bird knew what it felt like to be small in a world dominated by larger forces. The story awakened something within them. Compassion. Solidarity. Purpose. Within days, the numbers began growing. Hundreds. Then thousands. Flocks arrived from distant regions. Bright parrots from tropical forests. Elegant cranes from the marshlands. Swift falcons from rocky cliffs. White egrets from quiet rivers. Even birds who normally disagreed found themselves standing together. Old rivalries faded. Differences became unimportant. Because a shared cause united them. One evening, Uttanapata stood upon a rocky outcrop overlooking a vast gathering. Birds covered the shoreline. Birds filled nearby trees. Birds circled overhead. The sight took his breath away. Only days earlier, he had stood alone before the sea. One small bird filled with anger. Now thousands stood beside him. The transformation felt almost miraculous. Pativrata landed beside him. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. For several moments, they simply watched. The gathering seemed endless. The female bird smiled softly. "Do you see?" Uttanapata nodded. His eyes remained fixed upon the countless birds. "I do." The sea stretched beyond them. Still enormous. Still powerful. Still unchanged. Yet somehow it no longer seemed invincible. Because the little bird had learned an important lesson. Strength is not measured only by size, nor by power, nor by force. True strength often emerges when many hearts move together toward the same purpose. Night slowly approached. The stars appeared one by one. Across the shoreline, thousands of birds settled into place. Their conversations filled the air. Hope spread among them. Yet as impressive as the gathering had become, a deeper question remained. Would it be enough? Could thousands of birds truly influence the ocean? Could unity alone challenge something so vast? The answer had not yet arrived. Far above the world, beyond the clouds, beyond the highest mountains, there existed another being. A being whose wings could darken the sky. A being known by every bird. a being respected even by gods, the great king of birds. And soon, news of the ocean's actions would reach him. The gathering on the shore was only the beginning. A far greater force was about to awaken, and when that happened, even the ocean would begin to feel uneasy. The shoreline had never witnessed such a gathering. Thousands upon thousands of birds filled the coast. Some perched upon cliffs overlooking the sea. Others rested among the palms. Many stood together upon the sand where the stolen nest had once rested. By day, their wings glittered beneath the sunlight. By night, their voices blended with the sound of the waves. The ocean noticed. Of course it noticed. How could it not? The shoreline itself seemed alive with feathers and movement. Yet the sea remained outwardly calm. The waves continued rolling toward the beach. The tides continued rising and falling. The ocean had existed for ages beyond counting. It had watched kingdoms disappear. It had swallowed mighty ships. It had carved cliffs from stone. Surely, a gathering of birds meant little. Or so it believed. Meanwhile, among the assembled flocks, an important discussion had begun. The birds had united. That alone was remarkable. Yet unity without direction rarely changes the world. The question before them was simple. What should happen next? One young gull proposed continuing the original plan. We should all remove water. Several birds nodded. Thousands of beaks could carry far more water than one. Yet an elderly crane slowly shook his head. It would take longer than the lives of our descendants. The gathering fell silent. The crane was right. Even united, the birds could not truly empty the sea. A parrot from the southern forests spoke next. Then we should demand the return of the eggs. Another bird immediately replied. And if the ocean refuses? Silence followed. That was the real problem. How does one negotiate with a force of nature? The birds debated throughout the day. Many ideas emerged. Most were impractical. Some were impossible. Others solved nothing at all. As evening approached, uncertainty began spreading through the assembly. Uttanapata listened carefully. His earlier anger had softened. Now he understood something important. The ocean was not merely large. It represented a challenge far beyond the abilities of ordinary birds, even thousands of them. For the first time since the alliance formed, doubt entered his heart. Perhaps unity was not enough. Perhaps they had come this far only to discover their limits. The thought saddened him. Not for himself. For everyone who had answered the call. As the sun sank toward the horizon, a wise old swan stepped forward. Age had silvered his feathers. His movements were slow, but his eyes reflected deep understanding. When he spoke, the assembly immediately became quiet. Perhaps, the swan said gently, we are asking the wrong question. The birds listened. The ocean breathed quietly beyond them. Wave after wave touched the shore. The swan continued. We keep asking what we can do. The last light of day reflected in his eyes. But perhaps we should ask who can help. A murmur spread through the crowd. The old swan smiled. There is one who protects all birds. Immediately the gathering became silent. Everyone understood. Everyone knew. The king of birds. The mighty Garuda. The great celestial bird whose wings span the heavens. The guardian of bird kind. The enemy of serpents. The mount of the divine. Many birds lowered their heads respectfully at the mention of his name. For generations they had spoken of him with reverence. Not merely because of his power. Because he represented protection. Justice. Leadership. The old swan continued. If anyone can make the ocean listen. He paused. It is Garuda. Hope immediately returned to the gathering. The idea felt right. Natural. Obvious. Why had no one suggested it earlier? Perhaps because grief narrows vision. Perhaps because great solutions often appear simple once they are seen. The birds began speaking excitedly. Voices filled the evening air. Wings fluttered. Heads nodded. A new sense of purpose spread through the assembly. At last, the decision was made. A delegation would seek Garuda. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Immediately. The matter was too important. Too urgent. Too unjust. That night, while thousands of birds rested beside the sea, a chosen group prepared for a remarkable journey. Among them were cranes, swans, eagles, herons, and, of course, Uttanappada and Pativrata. The stars shone brightly overhead. The ocean continued its endless rhythm. Advance. Retreat. Advance. Retreat. Unaware that events were moving beyond its control. Before dawn, the delegation took flight. They rose above the shoreline. Above the forests. above the rivers, above the mountains. The world stretched endlessly beneath them. Days passed. The journey carried them farther than many had ever traveled. They crossed vast plains. They crossed snowy peaks. They crossed regions where few birds ventured. The air grew thinner. The skies grew clearer. Eventually, they reached a place unlike any other. A realm closer to the heavens than the earth. There, upon a magnificent golden peak that seemed to touch the clouds themselves, Garuda resided. Even from a distance, the sight inspired awe. The mountain shone beneath sunlight. Golden mist drifted through the air. The wind itself seemed sacred. The delegation landed respectfully. No one spoke loudly. No one rushed forward. For some beings possess a presence that naturally inspires humility. Then a shadow passed across the mountain. The birds looked upward, and their breath caught. Garuda was approaching. His wings seemed larger than sails. His feathers glowed with golden brilliance. His eyes shone like living fire. Each movement radiated power. Yet beneath that power rested wisdom. And beneath that wisdom rested compassion. The great king of birds descended gracefully. The mountain itself seemed smaller beside him. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then Garuda spoke. His voice was deep, calm, ancient. Why have you come? The delegation lowered their heads. The old swan stepped forward. Respectfully, carefully. And there, upon the sacred mountain, he began telling the story. The story of a tiny shorebird. The story of stolen eggs. The story of an ocean that had abused its strength. The story of thousands of birds united by justice. As the tale unfolded, Garuda listened without interruption. His expression remained calm. Yet something subtle began changing in his eyes. A spark. A concern. Perhaps even anger. Not for himself, for those who had been wronged. And as the story reached its end, the gathered birds sensed something important. The king of birds had heard their cry. And soon, the ocean would hear his answer. The sacred mountain stood silent beneath the sky. Golden clouds drifted slowly between its peaks. The wind moved gently through the high air. Far below, rivers wound across the world like silver threads. The delegation of birds remained gathered before Garuda. No one spoke. The story had been told. The stolen eggs. The arrogance of the ocean. The grief of the parents. The unity of the birds. Everything had been placed before the king of birds. Now they waited. Garuda remained motionless. His vast golden wings rested against his sides. His eyes gazed toward the distant horizon. At first, his expression revealed nothing. He seemed calm, thoughtful, almost serene. But true power rarely reacts quickly. Great beings do not rush into anger. They first seek understanding. For several moments, only the wind could be heard. The birds watched anxiously. Then Garuda finally spoke. Did the ocean truly know the eggs belonged to them? The old swan nodded. It heard the conversation. Garuda's gaze sharpened slightly. It knew? Yes. The mountain became silent once more. Garuda lowered his head. His thoughts moved slowly and carefully. The issue was not merely the loss of eggs. Eggs can be replaced. Nests can be rebuilt. The deeper issue was something else. Abuse of power. The strong mocking the weak. The mighty taking what they wished simply because they could. That was the true offense. And Garuda understood it immediately. For throughout history, injustice often begins when power forgets responsibility. The king of birds looked toward Yudanapada. The tiny shorebird suddenly felt very small. Not because Garuda was intimidating. Because he was standing before greatness. Garuda studied him quietly. Then he asked, "When your eggs were taken, what did you do?" The little bird lowered his head. "I tried to empty the sea." For a moment, silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. Garuda smiled. Not mockingly. Not with amusement. With respect. A foolish plan. Several birds shifted uneasily. But Garuda continued. A foolish plan born from love. The little shorebird blinked. Garuda's eyes softened. There is honor in refusing to surrender. The words filled Yudanapada with unexpected warmth. Because for the first time since the eggs vanished, someone understood, not merely the action, the feeling behind it, the desperation, the grief, the determination. Garuda turned toward the gathered birds. And what did the others do? The old swan answered. We united. The king of birds nodded approvingly. Good. The mountain breeze stirred his feathers. One bird is vulnerable. His voice echoed gently through the air. 1,000 birds become a force. The delegation listened carefully, for they sensed wisdom emerging. The kind of wisdom that survives across generations. Garuda spread one wing slightly. The sunlight reflected from countless golden feathers. Remember this. The birds became completely silent. The ocean is not powerful because it is water. The wind moved softly across the mountain. It is powerful because countless drops stand together. The lesson struck deeply. Many lowered their heads thoughtfully, because the truth was undeniable. Even the greatest ocean begins with individual drops. Unity creates strength. The same law applies everywhere. To rivers, to kingdoms, to families, to birds. The king of birds rose to his full height. The mountain seemed smaller around him. His expression became serious. Very serious. The atmosphere changed immediately. The wind itself appeared to pause. For although Garuda was compassionate, he was not indifferent to injustice. And what the ocean had done was wrong. Not because it had taken eggs. Because it had misused power. Garuda gazed toward the distant world below. Toward the shoreline. Toward the sea. Toward the force responsible. The ocean believes size grants permission. His voice deepened. It does not. Golden light flashed within his eyes. The ocean believes weakness invites mistreatment. The gathered birds listened intently. It does not. A profound stillness settled across the mountain. Then Garuda made his decision. Simple. Direct. Final. I will go. The words echoed through the heavens. A ripple of hope spread through the delegation. The king of birds had chosen to intervene. The balance had shifted. Immediately. The old swan bowed deeply. The cranes bowed. The herons bowed. Even Uttanapata and Pativrata lowered their heads. Not from fear. From gratitude. Garuda unfolded his wings. The sight was breathtaking. Each feather shimmered with golden brilliance. The wings seemed capable of covering entire valleys. The very air responded to their movement. Clouds drifted aside. Mist scattered. Sunlight danced across the mountain. The delegation stepped back. Instinctively. Respectfully. The king of birds prepared for flight. Far away, beyond mountains and forests, the ocean continued its endless rhythm. The waves rolled peacefully. The tides rose and fell. The sea remained confident. Certain of its greatness. Certain of its permanence. Certain that no tiny bird could challenge it. Yet the ocean had overlooked one possibility. The small rarely remain small when justice gathers around them. Garuda launched into the sky. The mountain trembled slightly beneath the force. A powerful wind swept across the peaks. Clouds parted before him. His golden form rose higher and higher, like a living sun crossing the heavens. Below, the delegation watched in awe. Hope surged through their hearts. Not because Garuda possessed immense strength. Because strength guided by wisdom becomes protection. Strength guided by compassion becomes justice. The king of birds flew toward the sea, toward the shoreline, toward a confrontation that could no longer be avoided. And for the first time since stealing the eggs, the ocean was about to encounter something greater than itself. Not greater in size, greater in purpose, greater in wisdom, greater in moral authority. The winds carried Garuda forward. The clouds opened before him. The world watched silently. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the ocean would soon learn a lesson it had forgotten long ago. Power without humility eventually meets a greater power. Across the world, the day seemed ordinary. Farmers worked in distant fields. Rivers flowed through valleys. Clouds drifted across the sky. The ocean continued its endless breathing. Wave after wave rolled toward the shore. Wave after wave returned to the depths. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing appeared different. Yet high above the world, something magnificent was approaching. Garuda, king of birds, guardian of the skies, protector of the feathered nations. His golden wings stretched across the heavens. The sunlight reflected from his feathers like streams of fire. Clouds parted before him. The winds followed him. Even the sky itself seemed to acknowledge his passage. Far below, birds along the shoreline noticed a growing shadow. They looked upward, and hope filled their hearts. Garuda was coming. The news spread rapidly through the gathered flocks. Excitement rippled across the coast. Thousands of birds lifted their heads toward the heavens. Some cheered. Others bowed. Many simply watched in awe. For few had ever seen the king of birds with their own eyes. Uttanapata and Pativrata stood near the place where their nest had once been. They looked upward together. The golden figure grew larger, closer, brighter. The moment felt unreal. Only days earlier they had been two grieving birds standing alone beside an empty nest. Now the entire bird world stood beside them. And the king of birds himself had come. The ocean noticed the shadow. At first, it paid little attention. Clouds often crossed overhead. Storms often approached. The sea had witnessed countless wonders throughout its long existence. Yet this shadow was different. It continued growing, and growing, and growing, until the sunlight itself began to fade beneath its wings. The ocean looked upward. For the first time, uncertainty stirred within its depths. Garuda descended toward the shore. The wind strengthened. Waves rose unexpectedly. Palm trees bent beneath the force of his approach. The air vibrated with power. Then the king of birds landed. The earth trembled. Sand swirled into the air. The gathered birds stepped back respectfully. Garuda stood upon the shoreline. Majestic, radiant, immovable. The ocean gazed upon him. And for the first time since taking the eggs, the sea felt something unfamiliar. Concern. Not because Garuda was larger. The ocean remained vast beyond measure. Not because Garuda was stronger. The sea still possessed tremendous force. The concern came from something else. Legitimacy. Authority. Justice. The ocean suddenly understood that this conflict was no longer between itself and two shorebirds. The entire bird world stood united. And their king stood before it. Garuda gazed across the water. His expression remained calm. Yet beneath that calm rested unmistakable power. For several moments, neither spoke. The waves rolled toward the shore. The wind moved through the gathered flocks. The sky remained clear above them. Then Garuda finally spoke. His voice echoed across the sea. "O ocean." The words carried tremendous weight. The waters became strangely still. The gathered birds listened. The ocean listened. "You have taken what does not belong to you." The statement was simple, direct, true. The ocean remained silent. Garuda continued. "You have misused your strength." The waves softened. The sea offered no defense, no argument, because deep within, it knew. The accusation was justified. The king of birds lowered his gaze toward the shoreline, toward Uttanapata and Pativrata. Then back toward the sea. "Return the eggs." The command echoed across the water. Silence followed. A long silence. The ocean hesitated. For ages beyond counting, few had ever challenged it. Fewer still had commanded it. Part of the ocean resisted. Part of it wished to maintain its pride, its dignity, its authority. Yet another part recognized reality. Garuda was not speaking merely for himself. He spoke for justice. He spoke for unity. He spoke for every small creature that had ever been dismissed by something larger. The ocean remained silent. Garuda's eyes narrowed slightly. The king of birds unfolded part of one wing. Golden light flashed across the shoreline. The wind immediately strengthened. Waves crashed violently against distant rocks. Clouds shifted. The atmosphere changed. The ocean understood the warning. Garuda was patient, but not endlessly patient. And if necessary, his power was immense, far greater than the ocean had anticipated. For the first time, genuine fear entered the sea. Not fear of destruction, fear of shame, fear of being remembered as a force that abused its strength. The realization cut deeply, because even ancient powers possess pride. And pride fears exposure. The ocean reflected upon everything that had happened. The boastful bird, the stolen eggs, the grief, the gathering of birds, the arrival of Garuda. All of it traced back to a single mistake: arrogance, the very flaw it had mocked in Uttanapata. The irony became impossible to ignore. The ocean had sought to punish pride, only to reveal its own. The realization settled heavily upon the sea. At last, the waves softened. The currents calmed. A profound stillness spread across the water. Then the ocean spoke. Its voice emerged from the depths. Ancient, deep, filled with regret. King of birds. The gathered flocks fell silent. The ocean continued. I was wrong. The words seemed almost impossible. The sea acknowledging fault. Yet there they were. Simple. Honest. True. Garuda listened quietly. The ocean lowered its pride. At last, I wished to teach a lesson. The waves rolled gently toward the shore. But I forgot one myself. The king of birds remained silent, allowing the realization to unfold. The ocean continued. Power without wisdom becomes arrogance. The birds exchanged glances. The lesson resonated deeply, because it applied to everyone. To the ocean, to Uttanapata, to kings, to ordinary creatures, to anyone. The sea grew quiet again. Then it made its decision. A decision that would finally end the conflict. The currents began moving. Deep beneath the waves. Something long hidden started rising toward the surface. The gathered birds watched closely. Udanapada's heart pounded. Pativrata held her breath. The water shimmered beneath the afternoon sunlight. And slowly, very slowly, the ocean began returning what it had taken. The moment long awaited had finally arrived. The shoreline remained silent. Thousands of birds watched the sea. Not a wing moved. Not a voice spoke. Even the wind seemed reluctant to disturb the moment. The ocean had admitted its mistake. The king of birds stood waiting. And beneath the surface of the water, ancient currents were moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Purposefully. The waves rolled toward the shore. Gentler now. Humbler now. The sea no longer carried the confidence of unquestioned power. It carried something rarer. Understanding. The sunlight shimmered across the water. The gathered birds stared intently. Then something appeared, a small shape. Barely visible at first. Rising from beneath the waves. The shape drifted closer. And closer. Until finally it reached the shallows. A murmur spread through the crowd. The eggs. The stolen eggs. Carefully protected within a cradle of seaweed and shells. Untouched. Unbroken. Safe. For a moment, Udanapada could not move. The world seemed to blur around him. His heart pounded. His wings trembled. Beside him, Pativrata stared in disbelief. Then tears filled her eyes. Not tears of grief. Tears of relief. Tears of gratitude. Tears of a hope returned. The two birds rushed forward. The waves gently delivered the precious eggs onto the sand. The ocean itself seemed careful. Almost apologetic. Pativrata lowered her head beside the eggs. She touched them softly with her beak. One by one. As though confirming they were truly there. Real. Safe. Returned. For several moments, she simply remained still. Overwhelmed. The entire shoreline watched quietly. Many birds found themselves wiping tears from their eyes. Because they understood. Every parent understands. Every creature who has loved understands. Some victories are not measured by conquest, they are measured by restoration. The ocean spoke again. Its voice rose from the depths, ancient and solemn. Little bird. Uttanapata lifted his head. The sea continued. I wish to humble your pride. The waves moved gently against the shore, but I allowed my own pride to guide me. Silence followed. The lesson was unmistakable. The ocean had become what it sought to correct. A mistake as old as the world itself. How often do we condemn in others what we fail to see within ourselves? The ocean continued. Strength without humility becomes tyranny. The birds listened carefully. Greatness without wisdom becomes danger. The sea grew quiet once more. Its confession complete. Its lesson learned. Garuda stepped forward. The sunlight illuminated his golden feathers. His presence filled the shoreline. Yet his voice remained calm, measured, compassionate. The ocean has spoken wisely. The gathered birds lowered their heads respectfully. Garuda looked first toward the sea, then toward the assembled flocks, then finally toward Uttanapata, the tiny shorebird who had begun this impossible journey. The king of birds smiled gently. You have learned something as well. Uttanapata lowered his gaze, because he knew it was true. His anger had begun with love, but it had also contained pride. The belief that he alone could challenge the ocean. The belief that determination alone was enough. The belief that strength meant standing alone. Now he understood differently. The little bird spoke softly. I could never have succeeded by myself. Garuda nodded. The answer pleased him. That is wisdom. The wind moved across the shoreline. The king of birds continued. A single drop of water appears insignificant. He glanced toward the ocean, yet countless drops become a sea. Then he looked toward the gathered birds. A single bird appears insignificant. The flocks listened. Yet countless birds united become a force capable of changing the world. The lesson settled deeply into every heart present. Not merely because it was true. Because they had lived it. They had witnessed it. The impossible had become possible. Not through power. Not through violence. Through unity. Through cooperation. Through a shared commitment to justice. The sun slowly began descending toward the horizon. Golden light spread across the sea. The waves shimmered beautifully. The conflict had ended. The eggs had returned. The lesson had been learned. One by one, the birds began departing. Some returned to forests. Some to rivers. some to mountains, others to distant coasts. Yet all carried something home with them. A story, a lesson, a memory. The story would be told for generations. Parents would tell it to their children. Teachers would tell it to their students. Wise elders would tell it beside evening fires. The tale of the tiny bird who challenged the ocean. But those who truly understood the story would know something important. The bird never defeated the ocean alone. The ocean was never truly the enemy. The real enemies were pride, isolation, the belief that strength belongs only to the powerful. As evening settled across the shoreline, Garuda prepared to depart. The king of birds unfolded his magnificent wings. The sky seemed to brighten around him. Before leaving, he offered one final piece of wisdom. A lesson not only for birds, but for all living beings. Never underestimate the small. His voice echoed across the sea. The ocean listened, the birds listened, the wind listened. The smallest creature may carry great courage. Garuda continued. The smallest voice may awaken many others. The horizon glowed with deep shades of gold and crimson. And when many small voices unite around what is right, a gentle smile touched his face. Even the greatest powers must listen. With that, Garuda rose into the heavens. The winds followed him. The clouds opened before him. And soon he disappeared beyond the horizon. The shoreline grew quiet. Night approached. The stars emerged one by one. Beside the sea, Yidanapata and Pativrata carefully rebuilt their nest. Not on the same stretch of sand. This time, higher above the tide. Wisdom had finally joined courage. And courage guided by wisdom is far stronger than courage guided by pride. Weeks later, the eggs hatched. Tiny chicks emerged into the world. They felt the ocean breeze upon their feathers. They heard the waves singing in the distance. They knew nothing of the great events that had protected them. Nothing of the alliance. Nothing of Garuda. Nothing of the lesson learned by the ocean. Yet their lives existed because others had cared. Because others had acted. Because others had stood together. And now, dear friend, as our story gently comes to an end, perhaps there is a lesson worth carrying into your own life. Sometimes our problems feel as vast as the ocean. Sometimes we feel as small as the little shorebird. Alone. Insignificant. Powerless. But appearances can deceive. No one succeeds entirely alone. No one carries every burden by themselves. Strength grows when we seek wisdom. Strength grows when we accept help. Strength grows when we stand together. The ocean still breathes. The stars still shine. The waves still kiss the shore. And somewhere, beneath an ancient sky, a tiny bird reminds the world of a simple truth: the smallest voice may be ignored, but many voices united can change even the tide. Good night.